All right, guys, so this is the Math 1050 extra credit review, okay? So question number 1, you can look at that parent graph. I don't have the review pulled up, but anyway, so the original points on the graph are 0.5, -1, point B is 1, 0, and point C is 4, 2, okay? And then what we're going to do is we're going to change these. We're going to call the new points A prime, B prime, C prime. Okay.
Call Windward.
And then,
the main office.
so
Windward.
it looks like this.
Office.
Make sure you write down this X becomes Y becomes stuff. Okay. So what changes the X is here, and the X lies. So X becomes X plus 2. Then remember, if you wrote that f of X minus 2 is a Y, there's your formula for Y. Okay, take the x's and add 2, so that'd be 2.5, 3, and 6. Add 3 to the y's and you get 2 and 3 and 5. Okay, and if you look at that equation, f of x minus 2 plus 3, there are no reflections, so the graph is going to still take on that same shape like that. Okay, so I'm going to go here. Okay, so 2.5, I have to go a little further. 5, 6. Okay, so 2.5, comma 2 is right there, and I'm going to call that A prime. 3, 3 is right there, and I'm going to call that B prime. And 6, 5 is right there, and I'm going to call that C prime. And so you're going to curve it, and it's going to go like that, and there's your graph. This minus 2, I think most of you guys understand. That means it shifts your graph right 2. So your asymptote is also going to get shifted right 2. Okay? So that was 1A. Here's 1B. Okay, so 1B, you have f of negative x minus 2. And on the test, they might say g of x is that. It's fine, it doesn't matter. Okay, so let's go x becomes and y becomes. So the x is multiplied by a -1. So I'm going to do the opposite and divide it by a -1. F of negative x is the same thing as y, so y becomes y minus 2. So your points are A is 0.5, -1, B is 1, 0, and C is 4, 2. And I do have a negative, you guys, within the f of x, and that's a reflection across the y-axis. So the graph is actually going to swing and go some kind of shape like that. Okay, so just keep track of those reflections. Okay, so let's change these points. So divide by -1 just means change the sign. So A prime, B prime x value is -1, C prime x value is -4. Take the y's and subtract 2. -1 minus 2 is a -3. 0 minus 2 is a -2. 2 minus 2 is a 0. Now I'm just going to plot these. Okay, so -1/2, -3 is right there. I'm going to call it A prime. -1, -2 is right there. I'm going to call it B prime. -4, 0 is right there. I'm going to call it C prime. It's going to go like that. Sorry. And your asymptote is going to be right there. Okay? That's it. Here's question number 2. Okay, so 2A is 3 plus 6i times 3 minus 6i. Okay, first of all, these are being multiplied because there's nothing in between. They're right up against each other. They're both binomials, which would tell me to FOIL. But since they're conjugates, which means identical, but the middle sign is different, I actually don't have to do the O and the I because they'll cancel out. So 3 times 3 is 9. A negative 6i times a positive 6i is a negative 36. I squared, which is a -1, add them together, and I get a 45. Okay, 2b. The biggest mistake that people make on 2b is that they think that they're multiplying, but that negative right there clearly shows you that you're subtracting. So the first set of parentheses were not necessary. Distribute the negative and you have a positive 4 and a negative I. 5 plus 4 is 9. 4i minus I is 3i.
Can you mute for a minute, or you gotta?
Lori Salvo is interrupting my recording. This is Lori Salvo. Okay, this is 2c. Square root of a negative 24. Okay.
Down there in a second.
Okay, thank you.
You guys your little lanyards. I've made you all lanyard for Christmas.
You're
so you can pick it out.
Oh, you're so nice. Okay, so 24 is 2 times 12. 12 is 2 times 6. Okay, so let's keep going with 2c. So 2 times 12, 2 times 6, and 2 times 3. So these two 2's come out. So you have 2i square root of 6. Okay, that was 2c. Here is number 3. Factor the following into prime factors. So don't let that wording scare you. It just means factor this completely. Okay, so what goes into 18? 2, 3, 6, 9, and 18. 18 doesn't go into 32, blah, 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 blah. So I think I might just be able to take out a 2. When I take out a 2, I'm left with 9x to the second minus 16y to the second. And now I can see that that's going to factor further. So it's going to go to a 3x and a 3x. One's a plus, one's a minus. The 16y squared goes to a 4y and a 4y. So that's your answer. Okay. Here is 3b. Factor into prime factors, which just means factor completely. So the 2t to the second goes to a 2t and a plain t. The 9 I would think was going to go to a 3 and a 3. That gives me 6 and 3, which subtracts to give me 3. So it totally works. The biggest needs to be that sign. The biggest is the 3, so it's the negative. The other one's a positive, and that's my answer right there. Okay? All right, question 4a. Find the domain. So this is an easy problem. If you're confused, it's probably because you've just forgotten how to do it. So remember that you can't take the log of a negative, nor can you take the log of 0. So you're just going to say 2x minus 5 has to be greater than 0. 2x has to be greater than 5. X has to be greater than 5 halves. That's it. Okay, 4b is going to be the same thing because this one is also a log. It's an ln, but that's still a log. So 5x plus 6 has to be greater than 0. 5x has to be greater than 6. X has to be greater than 6/5. Okay? Question 5a. I'm just going to be honest with you. Look at question 5, A, B, and C. There are no variables in any of those. I would plug it in my calculator. For sure, I would plug 5a in my calculator. So grab your calculator, and you're going to put in log 1 divided by 8, close it, divided by log 64, close it, hit enter, and I get negative 0.5, which I know is 1/2. Question B. Honestly, I don't think I'd put this in the calculator because it's so simple. You just pull the 7 down like that. I know that that's log base e of e, which is a 1, and 1 times 7 is a 7. Question C, I don't think I would put that in the calculator. I would just pull my 2 down. So now it's 2 times log base 5 of 5. Log base 5 of 5 is a 1. 1 times 2 is a 2. On B and C, you could actually check those by putting them in your calculator would be a great idea. Okay, question number 6. They're asking you to find h of f of x. So replace f of x with what f of x is, which is 2x minus 1. Go into your h of x, which is right here, and replace that x with 2x minus 1. So in parentheses, 2x minus 1 squared plus 1. This guy right here you FOIL, and you get 4x a second minus 2x, that's minus 4x. A negative 1 times a negative 1 is plus 1, so you get 4x a second minus 4x plus 2, and that's your answer. You are not solving anything. Many of you have been setting that equal to 0 and solving it. There is no equal sign. You're not solving. You're just finding h of f of x. So please don't solve that. Okay, question 6b. You have f of g of negative 3. So the first thing you need to do is find g of negative 3. So you go into the g of x, which is here, and right there where you see an x, you put in a negative 3. So that would be 3 times negative 3, which is a negative 9. Now you find f of negative 9. So if you look up, your f of x is 2x minus 1. Wherever you see an x, put in a negative 9. That gives me a negative 18 minus 1, which is a negative 19, and you're done. Okay? Question 7a. Find the least common denominator. Okay, so here is what you have. You have to factor the denominators. So this one factors to x plus y times x minus y. That one factors to x minus y. So I need x plus y's. This guy has 1, this guy has none. The most anybody has is 1. I need x minus y's. This person has 1. This person has 1. The most that anybody has is 1. Hi, hun.
Hi.
Sorry, I'm just recording.
No, you're good. I just want to see what I missed yesterday.
Can you come back? Is that okay?
Yeah.
Are you leaving?
Can I come early tomorrow?
Yeah. Are you leaving?
Because I'm sick.
Okay. Just start working on all those reviews. You know what I mean? Just email me. Why don't you email me when you get home and I'll respond that way. Just because I'm recording. Okay. I'm sorry you don't feel well, honey. Thank you. Okay. Here's 7b. So the first denominator is already factored for you, as is the second. Okay. So I need an x minus 6. Nobody has more than 1. I need an x plus 5. Nobody has more than 1. I need an x plus 6. Nobody has more than 1. So that's it. Okay. Question 8a. Okay, so I need to add these, which means I need to get a common denominator. The first guy's factored. Factor the second guy, and I'm left with 2r minus 1. So my common denominator is 2r times 2r minus 1. Now I look at this guy. He's got the 2r. He's missing the 2r minus 1. So I multiply the bottom by 2r minus 1 to get it to that. Therefore, I must multiply the top by 2r minus 1, and I get 12r minus 6. This guy right here has everything he needs. He's got the 2r, he's got the 2r minus 1. You have to be super careful because that negative needs to be distributed. So I get a negative r minus 1. So 12r minus 1r is 11r minus 7. On the bottom you have 2r times 2r minus 1, and that's it. Okay, question 8b. So the first denominator is factored, and the second denominator is also factored. So my common denominator is just going to be pulling those together. So this guy right here has the m minus 10. He's missing the m. So multiply the top and the bottom by m, and the top becomes 4m squared. This guy right here has the m. He's missing the m minus 10. So I'm multiplying the top and the bottom by m minus 10. Now you have to be careful here. You have to be careful for several reasons. Number one, this negative needs to be distributed, but before I do that, I have to FOIL this stuff. See that 7 minus m? It's just a little awkward. If I wrote it as m plus 7, it's exactly the same thing, and I feel like you guys are more comfortable with FOILing that out. So let's do that. Now, everything has to be in parentheses because the negative has to be distributed to everything. So it's m to the second minus 10m plus 7m is minus 3m minus 70. Distribute the negative and you get 4m squared minus m squared plus 3m plus 70 over m times m minus 10. Simplify the top and you have 3m to the second plus 3m plus 70 over m times m minus 10. Now I'm just going to take a quick second and make sure, yeah, I was just making sure if this numerator at the top factored to some kind of m minus 10, then I could cancel, but I can see that it doesn't, because right here it says the signs are the same, they're both positive, so there's nothing I can do. That's my answer. Okay, question 8c, I'm dividing, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to factor the top, that goes to y plus 4 times y minus 4, factor the bottom, take out a 5, and I'm left with y minus 4. I'm actually going to change it to multiplication right now, and I'm going to take the second guy and flip it upside down. Okay, so now this y plus 4 cancels with that one, y minus 4 cancels with that one, so on the top I have a y plus 2, on the bottom I have a 5, and I'm done. In terms of restrictions, anything in the denominator is a restriction, so if they did ask you for restrictions, it would be y cannot be 4 and a negative 4, and this is also a restriction because before I flipped it, it was on the bottom. Weber State is telling us we can't write it like that anymore. So we're saying y can't be a negative 4, and then y can't be a negative 2, and we're going to write it in separate statements. Okay? Question 8D. Okay, so top left, take out a 4, and you're left with r minus 3. Bottom left, take out a 10r, and you're left with r plus 2. That's multiplied by, take out a 5, you're left with r plus 2. Underneath, take out an 8, and you're left with 3 minus r. Okay? Now, first thing I notice is this. Look at this. R minus 3, 3 minus r. They're almost the same. So remember that little trick where you reorder it, so it looks like that. Then take out a negative, and it changes both the signs. So now I'm going to be able to cancel those r minus 3s. So this r minus 3 cancels with that one. That r plus 2 cancels with that one. 5 goes into 5 once, 5 goes into 10 2 times. 4 goes into 4 once, 4 goes into 8 2 times. So on the top I have nothing, so that's a 1. On the bottom I have a 4r, and I have a negative, so I'm going to put the negative up to the top and I'm done. Restrictions, anything here is a restriction. This was originally a restriction, and that's a restriction. So my restrictions are r can't be 0 because of that guy. R can't be a negative 2 because of that guy. R cannot be equal to a positive 3 because of that guy. And this one right here already had the negative 2, so I'm good. Okay, 8E. Okay, so I really hate the way this problem looks because I think it's like so confusing. So the first thing I want to say is, see this division bar? I want you to take it and extend it. And then it's like so much more clear what you're doing. Otherwise, it's like so squishy and terrible. So don't write that as a division symbol yet. Let's get common denominators. So on the top, it's going to be x to the third. So this guy has 1x, and I need 3. So I'm multiplying the bottom by x squared and the top. So this is 3x squared. This guy right here already has the x to the third, so I'm going to go plus 2. The bottom common denominator is going to be x squared. This guy has the x, so I'm missing an x. So 5 times x is 5x. This guy right here has the x squared, so I'm good to go. So it's minus 3. So we have 3x to the second plus 2 over x to the third divided by 5x minus 3 over x squared. Make the make the second fraction, flip that upside down and make the division and multiplication. So these two x's cancel with 2 of those, so I'm left with 1. So my answer to this is 3x to the second plus 2. On the bottom you have 5x to the second minus 3x. I still want to talk about restrictions. I know that they're not asking for restrictions, but I just want to make sure that you totally understand how to do it if you were to be asked. So anything that's highlighted on the bottom in purple is a restriction. So we have a restriction that x can't be 0 from all those. This one right here tells me x cannot be equal to 3/5. So those are my restrictions. Okay, 8F. make that line long. I'll write the original problem so you can see it. One of the biggest mistakes people make is they write it as a division symbol right now. But remember, the first thing you have to do is get a single fraction on the top and a single fraction on the bottom. So on the top, common denominator is going to be r times s. This guy has the r, he's missing the s. So 6 times s is 6s. This one right here, you have the s, you're missing the r. And negative 1 times r is a negative r. On the bottom, common denominator is rs. This guy right here has the r, he's missing the s. So 2 times s is 2s. This guy right here has the s, he's missing the r. So 3 times r is 3r. Now I'm ready to write it as a division symbol. So 6s minus r over rs divided by 2s plus 3r over rs. Make it a multiplication and flip the second guy upside down. This r cancels with that one, that s with that one. So I have 6s minus r over 2s plus 3r, and nothing can cancel. Okay? Restrictions, look at the denominator. R can't be 0, s can't be 0, and right here, r cannot be equal to a negative 25 over 3. Okay? That was 8. Here's number 9. How many x-intercepts does it have? So to find an x-intercept, you let y be a 0. So I think we're going to have to do quadratic. I'm going to try quadratic. So x equals negative 7 plus or minus the square root of 7 squared is 49 minus 4 times 1 times negative 25 all over 2 times 1 is a 2. That division should not go under the x. It's like that. So remember, grab your calculator and put that in right there. That's actually going to be 49 plus 100, which is 149. So I go x equals negative 7 plus or minus the square root of 149 over 2. And then 149, I'm feeling like that's prime. I'm thinking it's going to be prime. Yeah. I'm sitting here punching in my calculator trying to find something that goes into it, and I can't see anything. Yeah. Yeah, so I'm saying that's prime. So I've got 2 solutions, so 2 x-intercepts, so that's going to be C. Okay? Question number 10. On question number 10, do you see how the negative is raised to the third? So the negative would be inside, and you have a 27. Okay? So the negative comes out, and then you really have this. And then the cube root of 27 is 3. So that's it. But guys, you could also just put that in your calculator. So grab your calculator and go parenthesis, negative 27, close it off, raise it to the parenthesis, 1 divided by 3, close it off, enter, negative 3. Okay? All right, question 11a. So the parentheses are really not necessary, just so you know. So I'm actually just going to get rid of them. So anything that has a negative exponent, move it. So the y the negative second comes down. The y the negative third comes up. So on the top you have a 2. On the bottom you have a 3. You also have an x to the third on the top. 3 y's on the top, 1 y on the bottom. Where do you have more y's on the top? How many more? 1 more. That's your answer. Okay, question 11b. So the top is raised to the third. So the first thing you have to do is raise the top to the third and then divide. So 3 to the third is 27. X to the 3 times 3 is 9. Y to the 4 times 3 is 12 over 6xy to the third. Okay, so 27 over 6 is not going to reduce. On the x's, 9 on top, 1 on bottom. You have more on top. How many more? 8 more. On the y's, 12 over 3. You have more on top. How many more? 9 more. And that's your answer. Okay. All right. 11c. So 11c, is, I think, a little more difficult. So there are several ways to do this problem. I'm going to show you what I would do. Okay, see the -4 on the outside? I'm going to ignore that for a minute. Anything that has a negative exponent on the inside, I'm going to make positive. So the x to the -1st comes up, the y to the -2nd comes down. So now I have a -4 on the top, and I have an x to the 4 plus 1 is 5. On the bottom, I have a 5, and a y to the 4 plus 2, which is a 6. Okay, now I have 4 things in here, guys. Look, 1, 2, 3, 4. I actually wanted to think of it as 5 things. Here's your 5th right there. Okay, that negative. So raise them all separately to the -4th. So the first thing we have is a negative to an even power. Yes, the even power has a negative sign, but it doesn't matter. So a negative to an even power is a positive, so forget about that. The 4 is going to be raised to the 1 times -4 is a -4. X to the 5 times -4 is -20. 5 to the 1 times -4 is a -4. Y to the 6 times -4 is -24. And the parentheses aren't necessary anymore, so I'm going to drop them. Now, everything has a negative exponent. So bring the bottoms to the top, and those exponents are positive. Bring the top to the bottom. Exponents are positive. So now 5 to the 4th is 625. Y to the 24th. On the bottom, 4 to the 4th is 256. And that's going to be x to the 20th, and that's your answer. Okay, question 12. So Sweet Harmony Crafts has been determined when x 100 decimal, I don't even know how to say that, dulcimers, I guess. Okay, so we're going to say x is this product we're making, and it's in hundreds. Okay, so just keep that in mind. Okay, and then y is your c of x, and that is your cost. Okay, so there's your equation. And what they're asking you is okay, what is the minimum cost and how many, I can't say the word, dulcimers should be built in order to achieve the minimum. So minimum means vertex. So just go -b over 2a. So that's negative 0.7 over 2 times 0.1. 2 negatives is a positive, so forget about the sign. Go 0.7 divided by parenthesis, 2 times 0.1, close it off, enter, and I get 3.5. Now, that is the cost. Now, that is, oh, no, that's the number of items, okay? So I'm going to say 3.5. And it's an x value, so that's my dulcimers. To find the cost, you're going to go C of 3.5 is equal to 0.5 times 3.5 squared minus 0.7 times 3.5 plus 2.425. Make sure that you write this work down, okay? So I'm going to store 3.5 in my calculator. Actually, I'm going to go 3.5, store, enter. Then I'm going to go 0.1 membar enter x squared minus 0.7 membar enter plus 2.425, and I get 1.2. That's in 2 seconds. Yeah. Okay, so we're going to leave it right there. But this is, okay, so you have 2 options. 3.500, which is such a weird way to say it. And this is 1.2, and this is in hundreds of dollars, which is such a word. So I'm going to write it, but don't write it like that. So basically what you're going to do is take that 3.5 and you times it by 100, which gives you 350 of the items. And you can just plug it in as a 3.5. You should plug it in as a 3.5. Then 1.2 times that by 100, and you get 120. That's it. Okay? Number 13. Okay, so there are lots and lots and lots of different ways to do this in terms of what you're choosing to eliminate. So I'm going to go through and I'm going to analyze which one I think is going to be the easiest to eliminate. So x's are 2, 2, 1, y's are 3, 5, 1, and z's are 1, 1, 1. So for sure, the easiest thing to eliminate are the z's. Okay, so I'm going to eliminate the z's. I'm going to do it twice, one on the right and one on the left. So if this is equation 1 and 2 and 3, the first thing I'm going to do is take 1 and 2 and add them together, and my z's will go away. So that gives me 4x plus 2y, z's go away, equals negative 8. Eliminate the z's again. I'm now going to use 1 and 3, and I'm going to add those together, and I get 3x minus 4y, z's go away, equals negative 6. Now I'm going to take those two guys and eliminate something else. So if I multiplied this by a 2, I'd have 8x plus 4y equals negative 16. Those cancel. 11x equals negative 22, and I get x equals negative 2. So you know my answer is going to look like this. Now that I have one value, I'm going to come here or come there, and I could actually do there as well. Put it negative 2 in somewhere for x and find your y. I'm going to go here. So if x is a negative 2, I get negative 8 plus 2y equals negative 8. Pull the negative 8 over, 2y equals 0, divide, y equals 0. Then go up to the top, choose the easiest place. I choose that. So I have x, which is a negative 2, minus y, that's minus 0. I'm not even going to write that down. So I have minus z equals 3. Pull the 2 over, and I get z equals 5. Now, we're going to go through how to check this, okay? You really need to be checking a lot of these things that you do. So everybody go negative 2, store, enter. 0, store, right, enter. 5, store, right, enter. And then come over here into that top equation, put that in, and see if you get a negative 9. So go 2, membar, enter, minus 3, membar, right, enter, minus membar, right, enter, and I got a negative 9. Now I'm going to check this one right here. So I'm going to go 2, membar, enter, plus 5, membar, right, enter, plus membar, right, enter, and I got a 1. Last one, membar, enter, minus membar, right, enter, plus membar, right, enter. All three of them worked out. I am 100% confident that that is my answer. So check, okay? All right, number 14. Okay, so an arrow is shot vertically in the air from a height of 5 feet with initial velocity of 96 feet per second. The height of the arrow, h. Okay, so it's solved for y. So my y is my height, and that is in feet. The x is the t, and that stands for seconds. Okay, so here is your formula. It's a little strange that they don't call this h of t. It doesn't matter, okay? How many seconds will it hit the ground? Well, it's going to hit the ground when the height is a 0. So we're going to take this thing and we're going to set it equal to 0. Now I'm going to reorder it. Negative 16t to the second plus 96t plus 5 equals 0. I hate the negative, so you can go through and change all the signs. So I have 16t to the second minus 96t minus 5 equals 0. Now, my guess is this is going to factor. Might not. I don't know. I'm going to go to quadratic. It's just too bad. Okay, so I'm going to go t equals negative b, that's 96, plus or minus the square root of 96 squared. Everybody write 9,216 minus 4 times a, which is 16, times c, which is a negative 5, all over 2 times 16, which is 32. Okay, now let's put this in our calculator. So go parenthesis 96 plus second x squared 9216 minus 4 parenthesis 16, close it, new parenthesis, negative 5, close it, divided by parenthesis 32, close it off, enter, and I get a decimal. So it is and it says 2 decimal places, so it's 6.05. Now I'm going to go up, right, make it a negative, hit enter, and I have negative 0.05. That is an invalid solution because the X stands for seconds. So that's my answer, 6.05 seconds. If you get that 6.05 back on your calculator, store it in and put it back there. That's how you check it and you get a 0. Okay, question B. I'm going to go right here for B. Okay, so question B, when will the arrow reach a maximum height, and what is the maximum height? So that is negative B over 2A. So that's negative 96. We can use the negative, the equation with the negative, or the equation with the positive. It doesn't matter. So actually, let's just leave that. That's a lie. Just leave that right there. So this is the equation right there that we're going to use for B. Okay, so negative B, that's negative 96 over 2 times A, which is a negative 16. So and 2 negatives is a positive. So that's 96 divided by 32, which gives me a 3. Remember that the X value stands for seconds. Okay, so that means after 3 seconds, because they're asking when will it. And so that's the first answer. And now everybody go h of 3 is equal to 5 plus 96 times 3 minus 16 times 3 squared. So I'm going to store in that 3, go 5 plus 96, membar, enter, minus 16, membar, enter, x squared. I messed up. Yeah, I think I'm good now. Hit enter. And I get 149, and that is height in feet, and that's your answer. Okay, what is the practical domain? So domain is X, that's seconds. So it's going to be 0 seconds. And when does it hit the ground? It hits the ground after 6.05 seconds. Okay, question D is practical range, that's height. Well, the minimum is going to be 0. And we figured out over here that the maximum height was 149, and that's my answer. Okay, that's 14. Here is 15. Okay, so 15 had the typo I told you guys. So if you missed it, we need to give restrictions on this. So this formula that you're given, P of T equals 37.6 times 0.984 raised to the T power. This formula is only valid from 1970 to 2019, okay? And the X and the Y, the X stands for T, which is time. So I'm going to say years since 1970. And the Y is the percent of people that smoke. Okay, so question A. Strange that it says, what is the initial investment? It should not say investment. It should say, what is the initial percentage of people that smoke? And that would be 37.6%. Okay, question B. There is your factor. And since it's smaller than 1, it's a decay factor. And that is 0.984. And then the rate is 1 minus 0.984. So you get 0.016. You can leave it just like that. Okay. Question D is, what is the practical domain? Domain says years since 1970. So that would be 0. And how many years is it from 1970 to 2019? Well, that would be 49 years. So it goes from 0 to 49. Question E, E is range. Range is percent. So the 37, this is going to start getting smaller, right? So the 37.6 is the biggest value. Okay. Well, if it only goes till 2019, which is 49 years, put a 49 right there and you'll get your smallest. So go 37.6 parenthesis, 0.984, close it off, raise it to the 49th, hit enter, and you get, we'll go 2 digits. And so that would be 17. Actually, this one's to the 10th, so I'll do 10th. So that would be 17.1, like that. Okay. Okay, if this continues, what would the population be in 2020? Well, I don't really like that because the formula is only valid through 2019. Let's just use the formula, but the formula technically is not valid. So now your time is going to be 50. So you're just going to come into that equation right there. And where you have that 49, you're going to actually put in a 50. And so I actually have it in my calculator. So if I go up and to the right, on top of that 49, I'm just going to make a 50. And it is 16 point, and it says to the nearest percent. So 16.78 would be 17%. Okay? Okay, question 16. Here's your table. Okay. First of all, if we have to decide if it's linear. So the top is going up by 1, like this. It goes up 1, up 1, up 1, up 1, up 1. This is 3.5, so I'm adding 0.5. 3.5 plus 4 is 0.5. 9 over 2 is 4.5. So I can see this is linear. I'm adding 0.5. So part A is, it's linear. Does it have a slope, a growth factor, a decay factor, and what is it? Well, if it's linear, it has a slope. And then remember, slope is the change in the y, which is 0.5, divided by the change in the x's, which is 1, so it is 0.5. If these were going up by 2's, then it'd be 0.5 over 2, but that is not it. Now, that's one way to do it. Just so you guys understand, you could also go choose any of the 2 points, like 0, 1, or 0, 4, and 1, 4.5. So you'd go 4.5 minus 4 over 1 minus 0. That is 0.5 over 1, which is 0.5. So you get the same answer either way. Is it increasing or decreasing? Well, look at the numbers. You can see that it's increasing. And then what is the equation? Well, the equation is going to be y equals, we know the slope is 0.5, so it's 0.5x. This right here would be the y-intercept, and that's when x is 0, and they gave it to you right there. So that would be plus 4. If I were you, I would check it. If I put in a 0, I'd get 0 plus 4, which is 4. It totally works. If I put a 1, that's 0.5 plus 4, which is 3.5. Or 4.5, pardon me, etc., etc. So check it. Okay? Number 17. Okay, same type of problem. Is this linear or exponential? Okay, so guys, I know this is not linear because look, this is going down by 2. Is 3 minus 2 1.8? No. So I know it's not linear. So part A is going to be, it has to be exponential, okay? Part B, if it's exponential, find the growth rate or the decay rate, okay? So ours is going down, so it's called the decay rate. And so, you know what, it should actually be, is it decay rate? Now it should be factor. So don't worry about it. It should be factor. So how do you do it? Well, remember you take one of the y's and divide it by the previous y. So that 3 divided by 5 is just 3/5. So I'm thinking I'm multiplying by 3/5 every time. So if I go 5 times 3 divided by 5, I get 3. Then if I go times 3 divided by 5, I get 1.8. Times 3 divided by 5, 1.08. So it's a decay factor, and it's 3/5. Okay? And then question C, is it increasing or decreasing? Well, I can tell by looking at it, it's decreasing. Question D, what's the equation? So remember, it's y equals something times something to the x. Well, I already know the factor is 3/5. Don't write that as a decimal, just leave it. And then right here is what you begin with. Well, that's when x is 0, so that goes right here, and I put in a 3. And I would never walk away from this question without checking a few values. So if you put a 0 in for x, you better get a 3 for y. So everybody go 3 parenthesis, 3 divided by 5, close it off, raise it to the 0, hit enter, I got a 3. Do the 1, 3 parenthesis, 3 divided by 5, close it off, raise it to the first, hit enter, I got 1.8. Could check a few more, okay? Okay, number 18. So you have f of x equals 4 to the x. They want us to graph it. So this is exponential. I know that a parent exponential graph has an asymptote right there. I know it hits the point 0, 1. And I know if I go right 1, I go up 4, and there's my graph. Okay? And then part B is asking what's the domain. We'll look at it. It goes from negative infinity to infinity, or all real numbers. Question C, what's the range? That's y. Start at the bottom, move up. That's going to be from 0 to infinity. Question D, write the inverse. Well, if this is 1, 0, then 0, 1 is going to be on my new graph. If this is 1, 4, then 4, 1 is going to be on my new graph. And you guys know that inverse of an exponential is a log, so it looks like that. And the asymptote for that guy is right there. Make sure you draw your asymptotes. Okay? All right, number 19. So here is your equation. Solve it for r. Okay? So am I trying to get a common denominator or get rid of the denominator? The answer is get rid of. So 10 times 13 is 130. So I'm going to multiply everything by 130r. Okay, and then this guy right here, the r's cancel. 130 times 1 is 130. This guy right here, 10 goes into 10 once, into 130 13 times. 1 times 13r is 13r. This guy right here, 13 goes into 13 once, into 130 10 times. 1 times 10r is 10r. So now I have 23r equals 130. Divide, and I get 130 divided by 23. 23 is prime, so it's not going to reduce. That's it. Okay, number 20. Here is your original problem. I want you to remember that this less than works exactly like an equal sign. The only difference is if I divide by a negative at the end, or at any point, but it'll always be at the end, then I switch it, okay? So distribute the negative 4, and I get negative 12x minus 24 is less than negative 16x plus 12. Move the 16x over, it becomes a positive. Move this 24 over, and it becomes a positive. So I get 4x is less than 36. Divide by 4, and I get x is less than 9, and I didn't have to switch it because I didn't divide by a negative. Question 21, evaluate the discriminant. Okay, so to decide what kind of solutions and how many. So guys, the discriminant is b squared minus 4ac. So b is 3, 3 squared is 9, minus 4 times 2 times 1. That's 9 minus 8, which is a 1. So now let's think about it. Guys, you'd have negative 3 plus or minus square root of 1 all over 2 times 2, which is a 4. Well, the square root of 1 is a 1. So this is really going to be negative 3 plus or minus 1 over 4. How many solutions does that give me? 2 solutions. And they're either going to be real or they're going to be complex. Complex means imaginary. Well, they're not imaginary. So you have 2 complex solutions. Okay, number 22. If we were completing the square, 9 divided by 2 is 9 over 2. Square it. 9 squared is 81. 2 squared is 4. Literally, that's all you have to do. Don't do decimals. That's silly. You don't need to do decimals. Okay? Here's 23. So factor the denominator. Take out an x and you're left with x plus 3. on the bottom here, take out an x and you're left with x plus 3. And this guy right here has an x plus 3. So I'm trying to get rid of the denominators. So I'm going to multiply by x times x plus 3. So the first fraction, x's cancel, x plus 3's cancel, and I have a 4. Second fraction, everything cancels as well, so I have a 5. This guy, x plus 3's cancel, so I have an x. Pull my 5 over, it becomes a negative. I get x equals -1. Now you do have to be careful. I want you to write the restrictions every time you do this. So x cannot be 0, and x can also not be a -3. That was not a restriction, so we're good. If it was a restriction, then we would write it, it would be no solution, okay? Okay, 24, and this is our last problem. Okay, so this is a quadratic, which means it's a parabola, and they want you to graph it. So I would do -b over 2a to find the vertex. So that's -8 over 2 times 2. That's a -8 over 4, which is a -2. So I know my vertex is -2 comma something. Now to find the y, go g of -2 is 2 times -2 squared plus 8 times -2 minus 7. And when you put that in your calculator, you get 8 minus 16 minus 7. That gives you a -15. Is that right? I don't think that's right. Maybe it is. 8 minus 16 minus 7. Yep, -15. So it's just a big number. I also know this is a parabola that opens down with a stretch of 2. Parabola that opens up, pardon me, with a stretch of 2. So this is going to be kind of terrible. Sorry, I'm just checking to make sure I didn't do anything wrong. Yeah, it's just a bad grid for the problem and big numbers, but that's fine. Okay, so if I go left 2 and down 15, I'm here. And then my stretch is 2, so I'm going to go right 1 up 2, left 1 up 2. My next one would normally be 4, so this guy's going to be 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. The next one would be 3, 9, but it's really going to be 3, 18. So I'm actually going to do one more. I'm just going to go 10 higher. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And that puts me there. And then over 1 on this side at the same y. So it looks like that. Actually, I missed that one. This one would be here. So it's 1 more over. So it looks like that. Please, please, please don't make this look like a V. You got to kind of curve it a little bit. It should be over a little bit, sorry. Curve it up. Just please don't make it look like a V, okay? Now clearly label these things, okay? So if it says to label, make sure you do. So this is -2, -15. This guy is, I'm just going to do this one because that was 2 higher. So I'm going to do -1, -13. And this one is -3, -13. And that's good. Okay? You guys are awesome. I know that was fast, but just pause and rewind and all that stuff. And go to bed early, okay? You guys are awesome.